I still remember the first time I stumbled upon the occult. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I had just turned 25. I was working as a freelance journalist at the time, researching a story on the darker side of human history. My editor had given me a list of names to interview, and one person stood out, an enigmatic figure known only by their pseudonym, Astrid. She claimed to be a scholar of ancient mysticism, with a deep understanding of forbidden knowledge. I was both intrigued and intimidated by the prospect of meeting her. As I arrived at the agreed-upon location, a rundown cafe on the outskirts of town, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. Astrid greeted me warmly, her piercing green eyes seeming to bore into my soul as she handed me a steaming cup of coffee. We sat down, and she began to speak in hushed tones, her words dripping with an air of reverence. "The occult is not just about rituals and spells," she said, her voice low and hypnotic. "It's about understanding the hidden patterns that govern our reality. It's about delving into the dark recesses of human history, where the veil between worlds is at its thinnest." I was both fascinated and repelled by her words, but something about Astrid drew me in. Perhaps it was her unwavering conviction, or perhaps it was the sense that she knew secrets I could only dream of uncovering. Whatever the reason, I found myself becoming increasingly enthralled by her world, a world where the lines between reality and madness blurred, and the spirits of the damned whispered your name. I spent the next few weeks poring over Astrid's notes and research, trying to get a glimpse into her world. She had mentioned something about an ancient tome hidden in a dusty library or antique shop, containing forbidden knowledge that could only be deciphered by those who dared to venture into the unknown. I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was it, the key to unlocking the secrets of the occult. One fateful evening, I found myself wandering through the narrow streets of the old town, searching for a lead on Astrid's discovery. The moon cast an eerie glow over the crumbling buildings, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe like living things. I stumbled upon a small antique shop, tucked away between two larger establishments. The sign above the door read "Curios and Antiques," and the window display was cluttered with an assortment of strange and exotic items. I pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light within. The air was thick with dust and the scent of old books. Shelves upon shelves of leather-bound tomes seemed to stretch up to the ceiling, their covers adorned with strange symbols and markings that seemed to shimmer in the faint light. I began to browse through the shelves, running my fingers over the spines of the books, feeling for any anomalies or hidden patterns. That's when I saw it, a slim, black book bound in what looked like human skin. The cover was adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to shift and writhe like living things. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I opened the book, revealing pages filled with arcane script and illustrations that seemed to depict dark rituals and forbidden knowledge. It was then that I knew this was it, the discovery of a lifetime. But as I delved deeper into the book's contents, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched. The air seemed to grow colder, and I could have sworn I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. I quickly snapped the book shut, my heart racing with anticipation and fear. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had stumbled upon something momentous. The black book seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if it was alive and watching me. Astrid's words echoed in my mind. The occult is not just about rituals and spells, but about understanding the hidden patterns that govern our reality. I knew that I had to take this further, to learn more about the mysterious cult that seemed to be connected to the book. Astrid had mentioned something about a gathering of like-minded individuals who shared her passion for the forbidden arts. I couldn't resist the temptation to attend, to see if I could uncover any more secrets about the occult. The invitation was sent discreetly, via an encrypted email that required me to solve a complex puzzle to access. Once I cracked the code, I received a cryptic message inviting me to meet at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The night of the gathering arrived, and I found myself standing before the warehouse, my heart pounding with anticipation. The building seemed to loom over me, its windows like empty eyes staring back. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, my footsteps echoing off the walls. The air was thick with incense and the scent of burning herbs. A figure emerged from the shadows, Astrid, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. She led me deeper into the warehouse, where a group of individuals waited, their faces shrouded in darkness. They were dressed in black robes, adorned with symbols that seemed to match the ones on the book I had found. As we gathered around a central altar, Astrid began to speak, her voice low and hypnotic. "We are the seekers," she declared, "those who seek to understand the hidden patterns of the universe." She raised her hands and the group fell silent, their eyes fixed upon her. "Tonight, we embark on a journey into the unknown," Astrid continued. "A journey that will take us to the very limits of human understanding." As she spoke, the air seemed to grow colder, the shadows deepening around us. I felt a shiver run down my spine as Astrid handed me a small, ornate box. "This contains the key to our initiation," she said, her eyes glinting with a sinister light. "Are you prepared to take this step?" The group fell silent, their faces masks of anticipation and fear. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, and then, with a sense of morbid curiosity, I nodded. The box was opened, revealing a small, glowing crystal nestled in a bed of black velvet. Astrid's hands closed around it, and she raised them to the sky. "By the power of the unknown," she chanted, her voice rising above the incense-filled air, "we call upon the ancient ones, those who dwell beyond the veil." The room seemed to darken further, as if the very fabric of reality was being pulled apart. I felt myself being drawn into a vortex of darkness and light, my mind reeling with the implications of what I had just done. I became increasingly obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the occult. I spent every waking moment researching, experimenting, and exploring the mysteries of the universe. Astrid's words echoed in my mind. The occult is not just about rituals and spells, but about understanding the hidden patterns that govern our reality. I was determined to crack the code, to unlock the secrets that lay beyond the veil. My apartment became a labyrinth of books, papers, and artifacts, each one leading me deeper into the heart of the mystery. I spent hours poring over ancient texts, deciphering cryptic symbols, and practicing rituals under the light of the full moon. The lines between reality and fantasy blurred, and I found myself lost in a world of wonder and terror. My relationships suffered, my work began to falter, but I couldn't stop, couldn't look away from the abyss that yawned before me. I was driven by a hunger for knowledge, a thirst for power. The more I learned, the more I realized how little I knew. The secrets of the occult seemed to stretch on forever, a never-ending rabbit hole of mystery and intrigue. I became convinced that I was on the brink of a major breakthrough, that the next piece of the puzzle would unlock the doors to ultimate understanding. But as the weeks turned into months and the months into years, I began to realize that I was losing myself in the process. My identity had become tied to the cult, to the rituals and spells, to the endless pursuit of knowledge. I was no longer sure who I was or what I wanted. The obsession had consumed me, body and soul. As I delved deeper into the world of the occult, I began to experience strange and terrifying occurrences. The rituals and spells that had once seemed so fascinating now felt like a twisted game, designed to push me to the very limits of my sanity. I started to notice that the symbols and sigils that adorned the walls of our hidden chambers were changing, shifting before my eyes into new and disturbing patterns. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and I could feel it pulsing through my veins like a dark, malevolent heartbeat. One night, as we gathered around the altar for another ritual, I felt a sudden jolt of electricity run through my body. The room seemed to spin around me, and I saw visions of ancient deities, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I tried to scream, but my voice was frozen in my throat. Astrid's face loomed above me, her eyes burning with an unnatural intensity. "You are becoming one of us," she hissed, her breath cold and rank on my skin. "You are becoming a vessel for the ancient powers that lurk beyond the veil." I tried to push her away, but she held me fast, her grip like a vice around my wrist. The room began to distort and writhe, like a living thing in agony. I felt myself being pulled down into a vortex of madness, down into a world where the laws of reality no longer applied. I saw things that could not be seen, heard whispers from beyond the grave. My mind reeled with terror as I realized that I was losing my grip on sanity. The occult had consumed me, body and soul. I was no longer sure what was real and what was just a product of my fevered imagination. As the ritual reached its climax, I felt myself being torn apart at the seams. My vision went black, and when I came to, I was lying on the cold, stone floor, my head throbbing with pain. The room was silent, still, except for the sound of Astrid's soft breathing beside me. "Welcome back," she whispered, her voice like a rusty gate creaking in the wind. "We've been waiting for you." I lay there for what felt like an eternity, my mind foggy and my body aching. When I finally came to, I was met with a sight that made my blood run cold. Astrid was standing over me, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly energy. But it was what stood beside her that made my heart skip a beat. A tall, imposing figure loomed in the shadows, its presence seeming to fill the entire room. Its eyes were black as coal, and they seemed to bore into my very soul. I tried to speak, but my voice was frozen in my throat. The figure didn't move or respond. It just kept watching me with an unnerving intensity. I felt like a rabbit in the sights of a hunter, helpless and trapped. I slowly sat up, trying to process what I was seeing. The figure didn't flinch, didn't blink. It was as if it had been waiting for me all along, waiting for me to awaken to the true nature of our rituals. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like jelly. Astrid reached out and grasped my arm, holding me back. "Don't move," she whispered, her voice low and menacing. "He's not to be trifled with." I looked up at her, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes that gave me pause. A flicker of fear, perhaps. Or was it just my imagination? The figure didn't move, but I could sense its power, its presence. It was as if it had been awakened by my awakening, as if it had been waiting for me to become aware of its existence. I took a deep breath and tried to speak, but my voice was barely a whisper. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't get an answer, but the figure didn't move either. It just kept watching me, its black eyes boring into my soul like hot coals. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I realized that I was in the presence of something ancient, something evil, something that had been waiting for me all along. As I delved deeper into the world of the occult, I stumbled upon a hidden text that contained the key to unlocking the secrets of our rituals. The manuscript was old and worn, its pages yellowed with age and filled with strange symbols and markings. I recognized some of the languages as ancient dialects, while others were completely foreign to me. I carefully opened the book, blowing off the dust that had accumulated on its cover. As I began to read, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The text was written in a code that seemed to shift and change before my eyes, but I managed to decipher the words after several minutes of concentration. The language was unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was as if the author had taken words from different cultures and languages and woven them together into a new tapestry of meaning. I read on, devouring the words like a starving man. The text spoke of ancient deities, forgotten rituals, and hidden truths that lay beyond the veil of reality. I felt my mind expanding, my perceptions shifting as I grasped the enormity of what I was reading. I came across a passage that made my heart skip a beat. It described a ritual that could unlock the secrets of the occult, allowing us to tap into the raw power of the universe. The ritual was said to be ancient, passed down through generations of occultists who had mastered its secrets. I felt a surge of excitement and trepidation as I read on. This was it, the key to unlocking the secrets of our rituals. But at what cost? I continued reading, my eyes scanning the pages with growing urgency. The text spoke of sacrifices, of blood and fire, of ancient powers that lay beyond human comprehension. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the true nature of our rituals. We had been playing with forces we didn't fully understand, tampering with powers that were beyond our control. I looked up from the book, feeling a sense of unease wash over me. What had I unleashed? I knew then that I had to destroy the manuscript to keep its secrets from falling into the wrong hands. But as I reached for it, my hand hesitated. A part of me wanted to continue reading, to unlock the secrets that lay within. I took a deep breath and made my decision. I would destroy the manuscript, but not before making a copy, hidden away where no one could find it. As I held the manuscript in my hands, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had made a terrible mistake. The words on the page seemed to be searing themselves into my brain, and I knew that I had to destroy it once and for all. I looked up at Astrid, who was watching me with an unnerving intensity. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice low and husky. I tried to explain, but the words got stuck in my throat. Instead, I just handed her the manuscript, feeling a sense of trepidation wash over me. Astrid took the book from me, her eyes scanning the pages with an unnerving intensity. She seemed to be searching for something, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. I watched in horror as she began to read from the manuscript, her voice low and hypnotic. The words seemed to be weaving a spell around us, drawing us deeper into the heart of the ritual. I felt a presence behind me, and I knew that I wasn't alone. The air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. I turned to see what was behind me, and that's when I saw it. A dark, swirling vortex had appeared in the center of the room, pulsing with a malevolent power. I knew then that we had unleashed something ancient and evil, something that was beyond our control. I tried to speak, but my voice was frozen in my throat. All I could do was watch in horror as Astrid continued to read from the manuscript, her eyes flashing with an otherworldly energy. The words on the page seemed to be taking on a life of their own, swirling around us like a maelstrom of darkness. I knew that we were playing with forces beyond our comprehension, and that the consequences would be catastrophic. I felt a hand grab my shoulder, spinning me around to face Astrid. Her eyes were black as coal, and her skin was deathly pale. She smiled at me, and I knew that she had become something else entirely. The entity had awakened, and it was hungry. As the darkness deepened, I felt a sense of trepidation wash over me. Astrid stood before me, her eyes still black as coal, and her skin deathly pale. She raised her hands, and I saw that she was holding a small, leather-bound book. The cover was embossed with strange symbols that seemed to shift and writhe in the flickering candlelight. I felt a surge of fear as I realized what was happening. Astrid was attempting to summon something, but I had no idea what. She began to read from the book, her voice low and hypnotic. The words seemed to be weaving a spell around us, drawing us deeper into the heart of the ritual. I tried to speak, but my voice was frozen in my throat. All I could do was watch in horror as Astrid continued to read, her eyes never leaving mine. I felt a presence behind me, and I knew that we were not alone. The air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. I turned to see what was behind me, and that's when I saw it. A dark, swirling vortex had appeared in the center of the room, pulsing with a malevolent power. I knew then that we had unleashed something ancient and evil, something that was beyond our control. Astrid finished reading, and the air seemed to explode with energy. The vortex behind me began to grow, its power surging to new heights. I tried to step back, but it was too late. Astrid reached out and grabbed my arm, her grip like a vice. She pulled me forward, and I felt myself being drawn into the heart of the ritual. The entity began to take shape before us, its form coalescing from the swirling vortex. It was tall and imposing, its skin like dark, polished marble. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly energy, and I knew that we were in grave danger. I tried to struggle, but Astrid's grip was too strong. She pulled me closer, her eyes locked on mine. "It's time," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. I felt a surge of fear as the entity began to speak, its voice like thunder in my mind. "I am Jathik," it said, "and I have come for you." The words seemed to be searing themselves into my brain, and I knew that we were doomed. As the entity Jathik spoke its words of power, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. Astrid's grip on my arm tightened, and I knew that we were in grave danger. I tried to struggle, but it was too late. The ritual had gone horribly wrong, and I could feel the consequences of our actions unfolding around us. The entity began to grow in power, its energy coursing through the air like a living thing. It was as if it had a mind of its own, and it was determined to destroy everything in its path. I felt a blast of heat wash over me, and I knew that we were being consumed by an inferno of fire and energy. The walls of the room began to crack and crumble, and I knew that we had to get out fast. The entity's voice grew louder, more powerful, and I felt my mind beginning to reel under its influence. I was trapped in a living nightmare, with no escape from the horror that surrounded me. Astrid's grip on my arm tightened, and I knew that she was trying to hold on to me. But it was too late. The entity had already broken free of our control, and it was now wreaking havoc on the world around us. The room erupted into chaos as the entity's power surged out of control. Furniture shattered, windows exploded, and the sound of screams filled the air. I felt myself being lifted off the ground, my feet leaving the floor behind. I was weightless, suspended in midair by some unseen force. The entity's voice was a deafening roar in my ears, its power washing over me like a wave. I knew that we were all doomed. The ritual had gone horribly wrong, and there was no escape from the consequences. The last thing I remembered was Astrid's face, twisted in a scream of terror as she disappeared into the abyss with me. As I floated in midair, I knew that we had to escape the entity's wrath. But as I looked around, I realized that it was still with us, watching and waiting. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy, weighed down by some unseen force. The entity's power seemed to be draining me, sucking the life out of me. I saw Astrid's face in front of me, her eyes black as coal, her skin deathly pale. She was still with us, still trapped in the abyss alongside me. I tried to speak, but my voice was barely a whisper. "Astrid," I croaked. "What have we done?" She didn't respond. Instead, she reached out and took my hand, her grip cold and unforgiving. I felt a surge of fear as I realized that we were both trapped in this living nightmare. There was no escape from the entity's wrath. I tried to think clearly to come up with a plan to escape, but my mind was clouded, my thoughts muddled by the entity's power. I knew that I had to try and break free, but I didn't know how. The entity's grip on me was like a vice, impossible to shake. I was trapped at its mercy. And as I looked into Astrid's eyes, I saw something there that chilled me to the bone. A glimmer of recognition, a spark of memory that seemed to hold the key to our escape. I reached out and touched her face, trying to connect with her. "Astrid," I whispered again, "remember who you are." And then in an instant it was as if she remembered. Her eyes flickered back to normal, her skin regained its natural color. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the person she once was. I knew that we had a chance. We could escape this place, break free from the entity's grasp. But as I looked around, I realized that we were not alone. The entity's power still lingered, its presence felt in every corner of the room. As I stood there, frozen in terror, Astrid's eyes locked onto mine. "I remember," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of my own ragged breathing. "I remember what we've been doing." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the truth. The rituals, the incantations, the summoning of Jathik, it was all just a ruse, a way to get us closer to some unknown goal. But what that goal was, I had no idea. Astrid's eyes seemed to bore into my soul as she continued. "We've been delving deeper into the occult practices, trying to unlock secrets that were never meant for us to know." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized the true extent of our involvement. We had meddled with forces beyond our control, and now we were paying the price. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. Everything we thought we knew about the world, everything we believed in, was a lie. The occult practices we had been following were just a thin veneer for something far more sinister. I felt my mind reeling as I tried to process this new information. How could we have been so blind, so ignorant of the dangers that lurked in the shadows? Astrid's grip on my hand tightened, her eyes flashing with a mix of fear and determination. "We need to get out of here," she whispered. "We need to stop whatever it is we're doing before it's too late." I knew she was right. We had to escape, had to flee from the entity's wrath and find a way to undo the damage we had done. But as I looked around, I realized that our options were running out. The entity's power seemed to be closing in on us, its presence felt in every corner of the room.